that idea. Thank you. That concept of restraint, renunciation, refraining, abiding, pausing. Somebody might say, take a breath. That will be the instruction. One of them for this week, take a breath. Be of benefit towards the realization of this aspiration. If you have a word that you think in with this teaching, this idea of restraint, renunciation, refraining, pausing, abiding, put it in the chat. What might that word be for you? Somebody could say hesitating. I think that could work. Moment of mindfulness. Pema would say doing something different. I think that would certainly apply. Instead of the, I think I've got to say this, think this, act on this, do something different, particularly if there's a strong, forceful energy attached. We're now calling that, based on last week's chapter, the kleshas. The kleshas are the poisons, the afflictions, the causes of suffering that we all confront. Greed, wanting what I want. I talked on Saturday about wanting things to be different, which is, I think, probably one of the base wantings, wanting things to be my way, wanting it to reflect who I think I am, wanting the other to be who I think or I need or I want them to be. And we live in a culture then too, don't we, where we have a core belief. And the core belief is, if you get it right, if you do it right, if you say it right, you will get what you want and or what you need. Is that true? If you do it right, think it right, say it right, and I don't even know who decides the right, that's tricky, then it goes your way. If you eat right, if you exercise right, yeah. If you live in the right neighborhood, if you have the right car, then you can be happy. And then we run into the truth, don't we, of this human life, which is, doesn't matter what the material objects, if you don't have inner qualities of ease, of calm, that have been trained. They are not inherent to this human existence, though they are always available, always capable. They're not going to be the first bell that rings for you at all if you have not trained for that. Pema, last chapter, we'll review that for a second, actually said, be careful what you say in a moment of reactivity. And I think she used Trungpa's oh shit example, which is, if that's your response to life, oh shit, it's likely to play out at the time of death and not likely to send you in best direction. Not likely to be a support to you with your ultimate aspiration towards the end of suffering for you and others. Not likely. And then she used a word, she says, she used the example last week of a bear, I think it was, wasn't it? She confronted a bear in the woods up at Gampo Abbey up in Nova Scotia, lots of woods there. And she started running the other way, which is, of course, one of the most dangerous things you can do with a bear, saying, "O mani padme hum, O mani padme hum, O mani padme hum, O mani padme hum." just chanting the chant. And interestingly enough, the bear didn't chase her. How lucky. I don't know if that was, he couldn't figure out what she was saying because the bear was Canadian and didn't speak Pali or Sanskrit. That's pretty fun for me. So I think we're about ready to start. We are going to recite this. I am going to look at the chat first, and then we're going to sit for that 15 minutes of silence that we've committed ourselves to on Tuesdays now, because sitting in silence is a real opportunity, isn't it, to see the nature of this current state of mind, your current state of mind. And remember that awareness itself, like compassion itself, like love itself, is stateless. Maybe another word would be unconditional. And so we're looking at our current state of mind, but not mistaking it for who we most truly, most basically, most inherently are the words, are. That is not, in fact, our truest Buddha, Christ, Muhammad, Allah, nature, all the awakened ones could be called here. It is, however, that which is viewing that state of mind. That which is viewing your current state of mind is stateless, is borderless, is sectarianless, is colorless, ageless, shapeless, has not died and is not born, would be just some of the ways of thinking about the mind that in stillness and silence perceives what? Our thinking mind, our sensing body, or our feeling toned emotions, but that these themselves are not our truest self. They are often merely habits of conditioning come throughout an entire lifetime that we then call what? Me, mine, just like we call our histories me and mind, even when we know for certain we don't know them and we don't hold them correctly and we didn't see anything much but pixels in the history. We take claim of that history, we take claim of those thoughts, we take claim of the feelings, and then we name it I. And we're going to look at options for that today. But let's read first the chat. Blessings. Thank you, Tanya, so much. To Leslie as well. Felicia says to stop doing and instead just be. That's her idea of restraint, refraining. Just being, presence. Yep. Making space. Yep. Stopping. Yep. Nice, simple terms. That comes from a preschool kindergarten teacher. Stopping. Beautiful. Thoughtful motions. Yep. Be now. Yep. Silently awake. Yep. Stop. Breathe. Yes. To be still like a log. Yes. Renee, right out of Shantideva work. Heart vibrating. Yes. The truth of one's presence. That's the true Buddha nature. A stone's song. Yes. Silence. Our happiness is not outside, but inside, very much true. Wings fluttering, yes. Life happening as it is, without narration, without fiction writing, without claiming or rejecting, that we simply arrive into presence. I think we're ready now. Let's read. I will read this one, and then we'll keep reading it this week. as a reminder. So please prepare to sit. And we will be sitting silently, and then I will be going on directly into the meditation for today's chapter. Establishing oneself, calling to mind, beginning today, I was calling to mind Siobhan, Steve, and her cat, Sachi. Sachi is ill and likely will not live through the day there in North Carolina. And I'm thinking about them all. I'd like us all to place our minds in that open heart. And then calling to mind those for whom you wish to practice, for the person to whom, or persons to whom you wish to dedicate the benefits, the blessings, and the merits of this practice. Could be a person, it could be all those currently struggling in war. Those struggling with illness, with fear, with loneliness, with confusion, those caught in the kleshas, and then by extension caught in suffering. And then we set the aspiration. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge, for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and the sky, until all beings are free from sorrow and all are awakened. I'll strike the bell if you can hear part of it. Seeing thoughts as they arise and pass. Noticing how a thought itself, once recognized, is no longer driving the mind. It no longer has authority or control, because that which sees it is supreme. And so thoughts about Christmas, holidays, the war, thoughts about the self, creative thoughts, sad thoughts, worried thoughts, once recognized, are liberated, and in fact can then become virtue. How can I use the very recognition of this thought towards the good? And for me today, I had thoughts about Christmas gifts and crafting some things, and thoughts about my schedule, reflections on moments past. And in its recognition, I could choose restraint. I could choose stopping. I could choose propagating if it were right thought. I could take the thought and let its energy become that prayer aspiration to heal, to make whole, to contribute, to reduce suffering, and to propagate the good. And we can let go of the thoughts then, once we recognize them. This is an essential practice. And really, in line with our chapter and instruction, we can, as we have been discussing, move beyond the words or beneath the words and the concepts into the direct energy. Through the portal of the awakened heart mind. Once seen as thought, can be transformed immediately into usable, useful energy. And then action. And so my thoughts about crafting, for example, I recognize the good heart that wants to make offerings to people I love during this holy season. And I could simply drop the ideas to feel into the true heart of that, the love I feel for these special ones. And then beyond that, the love I feel for all beings, wanting their happiness, their ease, their joy, their safety. We can also take that thought, for example, about crafting and then make it all about me. My good idea, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to get, how everybody's going to love it, um, some recognition, acknowledgement, or praise for me. The thought itself really isn't the issue, is it? What we do with it then becomes the point and has its own impulsion, we'll call it. And we can then get all wrapped up in concepts, cling to the concept as something about me, my generosity, my goodness, what's supposed to happen during the holidays. It's endless, really, thoughts about, and using the energy then to propagate concepts. And this will usually get us into the cycle of samsara. What do I need to do? How do I need to get it? We can start stressing and worrying about how do I get these items, and really just start constructing stress-related storylines. And I just want you to notice the difference. Reflect back on your own thoughts. And remember, a thought is simply a thought. It doesn't have a good or bad valence on its own. And then see if you can pick up the energy. Did it have its own propulsion directed towards supporting or storytelling about me? Versus checking in with simply the energy of the wish for an offering, the wish for happiness, the wish that others be well. And the instruction says not only make contact with the energy, but direct it then. And that's why we have those simple repetition phrases, may all beings be well. We could even say, may this special one be well. May I be well and free from affliction. Recognizing that the affliction begins with one's own unrecognized self clinging, the beginning of all suffering. And so then stopping, restraint becomes essential practice. It's one we're actually doing all the time in our sitting meditation. Recognizing thoughts, feeling their energy, moving beneath the words, feeling into the heart space, the breathscape, and then directing the energy rather than letting it propagate. And for me, mostly it was directing it simply back into that still and silent space. Let's practice with thoughts a little bit now. And the first instruction is simply to recognize a thought as a thought. And we can gently note thinking, and then for me, the second step would be to simply create space and room, allowing the thought to appear and disappear. Just holding space and then feeling the effects of the thought dropping beneath the words into the heart space, the breathscape, and the body, and really seeing what's alive here. And when I drop beneath the crafting thought, I could feel a sort of warm flood, a radiating heart. And I could simply acknowledge my love, my care, my wish for others' happiness, and then just feel into the energy, letting the thought go, letting any ideas about what I needed to do go. Really abiding in loving kindness and care. I just had another thought about my tea. I'll use that one as an example. This is a present moment thought. And my thought was, oh, my tea's going to get cold. And I could feel the impulse to grab a sip while it was still warm. And we're not making or valencing any thought good or bad, right or wrong. We're just feeling the effects of the thought. And I could feel that impulsion that get a quick sip. And I decided to use restraint here. Recognizing that gripping, slightly grabbing, securing energy. And it's not good or bad either. Remember, all experience is usable. Be grateful for everything. We can turn every thought into the seed of virtue or into a poison, depending on its recognition and then what we choose to do with it. And I smiled at that and just felt into the slight grip that's still here a little bit. when we feel into the grip of fear, which is what all self-clinging is, the wish to secure, the wish to get something pleasant or what one needs, we can simply be honoring of that energy. And I recognize this as a very, very, very subtle seed of fear. I don't need to push away the fear. I don't need to minimize it. I don't need to have past judgments. That's ridiculous. It's just tea. None of this is useful. It's the continuing narration. But I can just feel for myself now in that little grip. And I can offer myself even here a little reminder. I'm all right now. Nothing that I need to do. And then I can simply come back to the breath and continue to stay present to that slight grip, watching how it too then changes, fades, and is released right there through the abiding. Didn't have to do really anything. So let's work for just a few more minutes, resting in the breath, creating space and room, that gentle and loving presence, your true Buddha nature. And then letting thoughts appear as they appear. A harsh thought or a loving thought, we can use them all. We're not looking for thoughts and we're not trying to propagate them. We're actually resting back in that vast open space of awakened heart mind, really prepared to greet, to form relationship, to recognize the thought and its papancha, its power, its inclination. And then to feel directly into the energy that comes with each thought. And then we remember that others, others just like me have these thoughts too. We don't need to push them away, and we certainly don't need to cling to them. The restraint begins immediately with the recognition of a thought as a thought. And then wholly empowers us and empowers the awakened heart mind to take a skillful action if needed. Maybe just coming back to the breath. Maybe feeling the residue of the thought in the body and the heart. Maybe noting the thought and putting it aside for later. May we all awaken and recognize thoughts as seeds for virtuous and for self clinging actions. And that we can, with recognition, decide. May we be filled with loving kindness, with compassion, and with this essential wisdom. And may we be well. And may we all have peace and ease. And may we all be happy. Truly happy. And may this practice this very day contribute and may it continue until all beings are awakened and free. So be it. Taking a moment to check in to the body, seeing how you are. I'm going to take a sip of that tea now. Maybe a little more appropriate time. Any thoughts or questions about this practice before we go to look at chapter 12?
Hi.
Oh,
Um, these last few weeks have been very interesting, and all I have to say, it's really brought a lot of awareness of my actions and my behaviors to things. Um, and I don't want to say, and I don't know how to say it. I know I'll talk to you privately about some things. Um, um, a little more sensitive, a little more awareness. Um, 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 that's all I can really say right now. A
yeah,
lot,
Tanya, that's exactly right. That's the beginning of
yeah.
really seeing that with awareness, with spaciousness, with recognition is the beginning of really having full agency over one's continued thoughts and then speech and then actions that really were no longer stuck in the energy of the kleshas just running us,
and
right?
and the other thing is, like, I've always been that sensitive person to everything else and everybody else. Um, Constantly. That's always what I've done. Um, and not being selfish right now, but it's saying this, it's like I'm actually feeling my own pain and stuff. So, and that's not being selfish at
No,
all.
no,
But this is what it's like brought to me over all these years of, oh, I do these things, and it's not like I'm doing things to get recognition or but I also over the years recognize the fact of, wow, am I just doing this so I can fit in, or I get like some unknown accolades, you know what I mean?
I
uh,
do. Yes.
and I don't even, gosh, this is like kind of almost sickly, but just wanting to be present and um to be, you know and I don't know why this year is like so much more sensitive. um and it is. I mean, there's been a lot of other stuff with people that I care about and going on, and now I feel like I am so vulnerable. Like I've let this huge shield down, and I'm so vulnerable. And there's a part of me that just is like wants to do that shutdown of,
That's
nope, 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 shut, 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 just go and do and be for everything else.
yes.
Um, and like this barrier has is broken, and I have to feel that, and I have to acknowledge it. And it's I have to say, um I truly embrace it. I love it. And there's a big part of my badass person who's just wanting to push it away and stuff everything down. And I have to accept it. I
That's
have
right.
it. And I know, how do I don't even know what I want to say right now, but
I think
I
everybody actually knows what you're saying, Tanya. I
I
don't I don't think there's a person on this screen who doesn't understand how we have all rejected, uh, killed off, pushed away, or projected onto others our pain, our fear, and our distress. And we're all working hard. I think we're in that place as a Sangha. We have now cultivated enough courage, enough wisdom, enough community to really work hard to be with ourselves in this. And then consequently, what? Be with others in it. So we all know what you're saying because we've all done it all. There's no exception here. There's not an exception. Now, some of us may not be aware of that yet, but I can promise you, if you're sitting here going, I don't really know what Tanya's talking about, which I don't suspect there are too many bodies in this space, you will. You will. And our job is what? Simply feeling the energy of this, Tanya, not really having to push away or cling to this as just my failed and fucked up way of dealing with pain. We don't have to do that either. Can we just let it be the shaky, grippy, hot, right? And really, as we know and practice, placing our own hands on our own heart, as I saw you do several times here, to stay there. And then the words really aren't the point.
and that's the thing, like there's times I don't have the words to share, and just being in that place and accepting that, and then like it makes me go back to like all my other stuff that I've done in practice, but that little that little person, that little being, that my creation that I was brought here for, of
Yeah,
that person, that being, that
that,
you
that's
know
right. That's
that scared little girl.
that's right. And we can all hold you silently as well. Everybody here knows because we're letting that impact our own bodies, our own hearts, our own
That
minds,
it,
right? That's the exchange.
all,
Uh,
or all of the parts that we have that we stuff or we're conditioned and all that,
yeah,
right?
yes.
That's why we're the community we are, and we support who we are. And I mean, I'm so thankful I can be so vulnerable, because I really, you guys have, I don't want to say you guys have broken me down, but you have, and it's safe and it's okay, and I get to hold that that little
And
girl,
we're going to hold it with you. We're going to
and
hold it
I
with you.
get to everybody else too,
Yes,
because
right.
of that, right?
That's right. And then you're going to hold it for us and others. And that's the reason we have to be with our own experience. Because if we can't tolerate that in us, we already know the possibility of really being present with that stillness and silence first. Remember, not the doing first, not the words first, not, but really the breath, breathing with you, being with you. And that has profound healing impact. Really, presence is the medicine, right? Nobody has to say anything. And somebody, Robin just wrote, just like me, right?
Yeah.
We all know it, just like me. So we don't have to apologize. We don't have to feel some other way. We don't have to get it. We don't have to do anything about it. We simply have to be willing to have it's really fearlessness, I think. It is the most incredible bravery to be willing to turn towards one's pain, one's suffering, one's own fear, and one's own mind with, what did I say on Saturday? Full responsibility, not with judgment, not with, I've got to change it, it's my fault, I've got to make it, but just with honoring one's holy experience. Right? So thank you for that. This is the truth for us all, spoken now through you. And we don't try to get out of it. We're not trying to run the other way. We're all getting too tired, by the way, because you can only do that runaround for about 50 something years, and then it all starts to burn out. Right? Because you go, whoops, wait a minute. I'm not going to be able to keep that up forever. And this is the beautiful turning towards the truth of the Dharma without having to change, get rid of, or transform anything at all. It transforms itself by our very presence with it. And good for all of us. Yes, congratulations to all of us for this big work that we've been doing now for many, many years together. So thank you all for that. And thank you, Tanya, for being vulnerable and sharing that, because that is exactly right. It is all of our story, not just yours at all. I'm going to go to the chapter so we can look at this a little. I don't want to come back to this one. I think there are a few key points to be made here. I think we can make them somewhat easily. We already have, I think, essentially by Tanya's share, made them. And remember, we all know this is all of us, as has been said by Robin and others. We know the truth of this. The first step to courage. So we just said that, didn't we? Right? And now we're coming back to the chapter. Now it makes some sense. The first step in fearlessness, the first step in bravery is simply to abide the experience without fussing, without futzing, without Windexing, without cleaning up, without getting rid of, without taking out the trash on anything at all. This is very difficult to do. Very difficult. Why? Most of us have 40 plus years of training in Windexing the counters, in wiping it all off, and cleaning it all up. In getting it out before we can, it starts to smell. And in fact, it is not useful. It is not useful because then you don't know something essential about the truth of our human condition and the path to its freedom. We don't then know. And so there it is. The first step is that stopping, pausing, wait, opening to know. And here's what Pema has to say. It says, here we are, meditators on the path, journeying from birth to death in the bardo of this life. The bardo, the open space, we've decided that means not even the limited space between. It is all space, all open space. We sect it up by there was this, and then there was that, and then there was this, and then there was that. And then the bardo itself can, interestingly, when we no longer are putting it in between things, can become the simple open space of awareness, and then of loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom, right? That bardo itself can be the vast open space as well. We're just learning about that. How do we take one and open into it to get it? To practice the Dharma means not only to meditate and contemplate the teachings, not to study, that's one of the elements of the practice, but also to apply our understanding in our daily life. If you are simply meditating for 30 minutes, 30 hours, doesn't matter, pointless. Pointless. Don't do it. Go play tennis, said my teacher. Go play tennis. Don't do it, because truthfully, whatever it is you're getting, whatever sense of ease or peace, it is simply addicting. You're looking for an escape. You have found one called concentration. I have done it for many years in my early practice, and it will not serve you or others. Even with what that apparent ease is, it's really self-clinging ease. Get it for me, not for create space for me to hold me and others in it. So be careful about the meditator's addiction. One of the things that initially drew her, Pema, to Buddhism was that there was actually methods, real instructions and practices to help her become happier and to have more connection to her own life through, by the way, her own suffering. Pema did not have an easy time coming into these practices in her 40s. She had just been left by a husband, and it was very, very difficult. By the way, so was it true of my teacher, Joko Beck, who was a very established, amazing professional pianist, and was also left by a mentally ill partner. And in those times, being left was a very scary thing, because women did often not make sufficient monies to take care of themselves and now their children. It was a very terrifying and scary thing, as it is for many people to this day, by the way. It's not just a thing from our dependency, and then the loss of those resources is very scary for us all. The true cause of our unhappiness, she writes, is not outside ourselves, but inside, even when there's these difficult things that happen. Our propensities, or our habits, and their negative emotions are what ruin our days, not our supervisor, not our family, not our enemies, not life. It is not the circumstance of our life that causes our suffering, however painful it may really be. Right? We know pain is pain. It is a part of this human life. Making this distinction is a part of this first steps in courage. What am I doing with this experience that is furthering or creating suffering? And pain is pain. And as Sharon Salzberg says, some things just hurt, don't they? And we don't have to get rid of them. We don't have to try to feel some other way. This is a mistaken understanding for those of us on the spiritual path, that somehow if I got it right, it wouldn't hurt. This is not true, is it? It's a delusion. We use that very thing then as a spiritual bypass, and we're not going to do that. In fact, Pema says, can we be braver and actually go right into the pain without the story, without the belief thoughts, without the propensities? And the answer is yes, we can train and do so. As is taught again and again, as long as the poisons of the kleshas, greed, hatred, and delusion, remain in our mind, we will not find happiness anywhere in the world. As long as there's a mind that says, I've got to have it like this, I don't want it like that, it's got to be like this, or completely ignores the whole thing, the path to happiness is not possible. Recognizing those very same kleshas, however, is the path. We didn't get rid of anything. We're still greedy. We're still not liking. We're still ignoring. No problem. And we are still enough, silent enough, open enough to recognize that that's in fact exactly what the mind is doing. And then we drop right in to where we would otherwise run, right into the pain heart. And we breathe it, don't we? And we stay. And we breathe it again. and we stay. And we've changed everything by that simple action. No more stories, just touching into the grip and staying with oneself. It's beautiful practice. There's 3 steps to courage. They've got them outlined here a little bit. The one is refraining from reacting. Pema calls this sometimes doing something different. So instead of just going to Windex the counter, I could just sit with my own tight chest. I could just sit with the impulse to get up to do something. I could sit with the desire of the pleasantness of the sip of tea and simply do nothing. And simply do nothing. This would be the first act of courage. I didn't run the other way, did I? I didn't. I didn't grab the tea. I didn't grab the Windex bottle. I didn't grab anything. I just stayed with and breathed the truth. Right into the direct experience, though, we're saying in the practice today, not in the papancha of thoughts about it. No, not helpful, will not serve you. Those are made up. Those are conditioned. That's why we call them kleshas. They're made up. We're going to just stay in the body, stay in the heart, stay in the chest, feel the sick belly. It's all okay. And being with ourselves. Didn't we just say that? Didn't we say the one thing we're all looking for was the capacity to simply be with oneself and then others as we are? The greatest gift of love there is. And what else could you call that then but love? What would it be? Nothing. It could only be love. Because you have transcended all of the lizard brain, all of the habits, all of the kleshas, all of the I'd rather be somewhere else doing something else with somebody else. To just be where? Right here with me, in me, so that I could actually be here with you. Because there really is no other way, is there? If I'm not in me, if I'm not with me, if I can't feel the breaking of my own heart, how the hell am I going to be with you? And the answer is you can't. You're in thinking, you're in fixing, you're in, right, undoing, redoing something. And we're all in the habit. And that's okay. Recognizing it is the way to its end. Hooray. Transforming the kleshas into love and compassion happens the moment we decide to stay. Isn't that amazing? And you didn't do anything yet. You just said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to avoid. I'm not going to shut down. I'm not going to get busy. I'm just going to breathe and be here. And everything is different because now we have infused the moment with loving kindness, with compassion, and with wisdom by our presence. Because that's all we're capable of, really. Isn't it true? So transforming the kleshas is the second method. And the transformation isn't a doing, it isn't making something. It's really by virtue of the staying, the courage that came from the first step immediately brings about that knowing presence in the second. And it is rather than going the other way. And from that, what happens? We can use the emotion then, the very pain that Tanya's talking about, the very awareness, the very recognition as the path to awakening. We don't have to get rid of anything at all. Here we transcend the duality of good and bad, right and wrong, for leaving and letting the emotion be simply as it is. What did I call it? Energy. Just energy. Her brother had that beautiful little, this comes from AA. Whenever we are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, halt. That's an instruction on refraining instead of fixing, freezing, fighting, or flighting. We could choose awareness, we could choose presence. And that 3 breath practice. Can I simply recognize the impulsion like I did for that tea and simply take 3 breaths in awareness. We're going to do that for our practice this week also. So what I want to do is use speech in particular this week. So when you feel like you're going to say anything that is complaint, is judgmental, is blaming, is harsh, is gossipy, we're going to use right speech this week, is idle chatter. Those are all the antidote of the other sides of right speech. Lying. We are going to stop, refrain, and take those 3 breaths before those habits of speech. They're very, very, very set in concrete for us. Everybody remember them? Gossiping, lying, idle chatter, harsh speech, unkind speech, these things. Before we judgments or blame, we're going to stop. Lynn and I and her husband Paul and Tanya were all at the Maitreya empowerment on Friday, and it was Saturday. And one of the things they worked a lot on, was loving kindness in speech, loving kindness in the body. We took on the body of Maitreya. Loving kindness of speech. We took on the speech of Maitreya, speaking always from loving kindness, care, compassion. And we took on the mind of Maitreya, really the mind devoted to that bodhisattva aspiration to end all suffering and to contribute. And so that led me to, well, how habit-oriented is our speech? Just dramatic, right? And so we're going to practice with that this week. 3 breaths, halt.
I'm gonna here. This is something that you always remind us of as well with what we do, and it's been really helpful for me with a lot of stuff, because I always try to, before I do something, because as a younger person, I would always just be like intervening, doing something. With this practice and everything else, it's very much mindful, like anything I do, driving, my family, whatever. Or just when I'm sitting with myself in my own monkey mind, as we've talked about before, it's like, stop, breathe, kindness.
And we're going to do that with speech in particular.
It was such a reminder. I mean, because like I said, it was just sitting there going, gosh, we do this all the time. Oh my goodness. Like, how thankful and how blessed that I get to share this practice, not just with myself, but with others.
Yeah, I feel grateful every day to have been exposed to these teachings.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you.
I agree. In a community of others who are also working so hard to practice them.
And it's always it's always that reminder of when we are in this practice and meeting each other, it's that constant reminder of, or sharing what we do. Of like, well, I was an asshole yesterday and I did this, or whatever we did, or however we did, or how mean we were to our own selves. It's like, stop, breathe, kindness, hug, go back.
Start again. You're bringing up a really important point, Tanya, one I wanted to make, and you're already making it, which is before speech, there are actually harsh thoughts. and they are often directed at ourselves. Before we go into blaming, shaming, judging another, there actually are often unconscious, not very well seen or recognized thoughts about our own safety, our own well-being, our own failure. It is actually true. See if you can catch that once you recognize the habit or the wanting to speak. See if you can't reel it back a little bit to go, what were the thoughts I was having? And frequently for me, the thoughts are, I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay if I don't say this. I'm not going to be okay if that person continues. I'm not going to be okay if I don't make the point. I'm not going to be okay if they continue with their deluded belief thoughts. I'm going to have to straighten this out for them. It's all really self-propagating, very much. See if you can't reel it back to where was the threat? Where was that sense of insecurity? Where was the me, not me story being told that led then to blame, shame, judging, condemning speech, idle gossip, right? And for me, idle chatter, like just shut up.
And
See, can't do that.
like, oh, I just gotta, zip the lip, done. Nope, don't need to contribute to that. I can hear what you're saying. I don't need to say, I just need to be here. And that's been a huge thing for me this week of, oh, nope, not, and then I don't have to be in that propagation of that
That's right.
craziness.
Yeah, you're not
Right?
furthering suffering.
And I'm like, huh? Okay. So just I could, okay. Don't give my 2 cents, because my 2 cents are 1 cent, really. And it doesn't fucking matter, because it's gonna end up in an argument or some kind of like stupid. I don't want to use the word stupidity, but
Well, even when you're right,
ill,
you're wrong.
ill will taken.
Yes. Even
And
when you're right, you're wrong is something I hold about this.
I'm
Even
never
when you're right, you're wrong.
I'm always gonna be wrong, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well,
It
like
doesn't
we don't
matter.
need to say it. Don't say it.
And
I used to walk around like this,
mhm,
uh, holding my duck lips
yeah.
when I was tending to walk, and my kids would go, okay, and they would leave the room. Like, let's clear the space because she's about to blow. It was like a volcano. And it was beautiful practice. And it was beautiful practice. Let me continue because we only have a few minutes and I want to get through this chapter. The point is to give ourselves the time and support to feel what we feel. This is the key. And interrupt the storyline. I say drop beneath, but right? Not just to propagate the ideas, but to really move towards the direct experience itself. This is the true teacher in all moments. All moments. Mindful gap is one of the other thoughts, creating a mindful gap. That's that pause we talk about. That's the stopping. The energy of the kleshas, this was the other point I wanted to make, and we'll be done. The energy of the kleshas is very intense. It's very powerful. It is like throwing water down a hillside that you've thrown for the last 50 years. You have constructed the Grand Canyon in your mind, and boy, it is going to go off in that direction. Why am I making the point? Because we have to be kind with ourselves. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be compassionate then and non-judgmental and gentle with ourselves, because we've got that neural pathway well grooved in concrete now. And every time we halt, every time we pause, every time we don't say anything, we are changing that for the better every single time. And it's something I want us to remember, because we're also going to notice that we fail. Right? We're going to notice that we fail in it. We're going to say it. It's going to right out of the mouth, right from the lizard brain. And I want us to be kind. Do not propagate the harm, even there. You don't have to do it. You take a moment, right? You remember your commitment to the practice and you begin again. And that's essential, right? If you are going to judge, condemn, be harsh with our speech, don't do the practice. Don't do it, because you're only going to cause further suffering and further harm. Just say, okay, that one's too hard for me. I'm not ready to step into right speech quite yet, because remember, failing in speech is what we're going to notice more. And yet still, even in the failure, if we can remember to be loving, kind, compassionate, and patient with ourselves, we're still doing restraint, because that's stopping the propagation of that self-loathing, self-hating pattern. You get what I'm saying? And she goes on to talk about that really here, right? So even when we didn't get it right, can we get it right now? By offering ourselves presence, compassion, and kindness. And the answer is yes, we can. I'm certain we can do that together. We're going to be in the garden this Saturday. I look forward to seeing everyone. Greg will be here on Thursday morning at 7 a.m. Please join us at that time as well. We're going to be going on now to the second step to courage, how to take a positive relationship, cultivating positive relationship with the kleshas, using our greed, hatred, and delusion, these old habits, as ways of waking up. How amazing and fabulous is that? We can use everything. And so let's take a moment together, just take a few breaths. Make contact with the body, sitting here, the sense of aliveness in the body, and that sense of commitment we all have. I can feel it from here. The commitment to pause, to stop, to refrain from harmful speech. Just this week, we're going to practice with that. May we all be happy, safe, and well. May those in suffering be freed from suffering. And may you be a part of that contribution. Thank you so much for your practice this morning. I look forward to seeing you Thursday or Saturday. And everyone, yes, peace to all. Be well, everyone. Good to see you all.
Take care, everybody. Love you. Thanks so much for this practice.
Thank you. There we go. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.